This afternoon, we are going to talk about the issues surrounding Eskom, and let's get straight into it. In fact, we are joined by the General Secretary of SAFTU, that's Zwelinzima Vavi, and he leads that federation, and you will know that the biggest union within the SAFTU fold is NUMSA, that's the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa. So let's get a sense from Mr. Vavi as to how they see things within SAFTU and in particular through the eyes of NUMSA. The situation at Eskom, Mr. Vavi, very good afternoon to you and thank you very much for your time. You, one of the federations that organize within Eskom, as I've mentioned, NUMSA, that's your largest union there. How do they see things at Eskom? What seems to be the problem?
Well, the problem is the inefficiency, incompetency of management. That's for now, in the short term. But in the long run, we have seen an attempt to sabotage Eskom altogether, to hollow it out and to, by design, make it lose its credibility and its power that it has enjoyed for so many decades. As the provider of the cheapest energy and to the country, something that would have made South Africa to be very competitive in terms of attracting investments into South Africa. And the reason why this is now so, we believe that the leadership of the ANC was keen to put Eskom as one of the strategic state institutions that it is going to privatize, and hence it started a program to weaken it, to hollow it out, to allow introduction of the independent power producers to compete, but at the same time to provide subsidies to these independent power producers as part of the scheme of ensuring that they are profitable, and once Eskom was guaranteed 20 billion rands at least in one financial year of losses as a direct result of its subsidizing the IPPs. And that's what we think is happening.
Sure. Let me pick up on two aspects that you've mentioned in your first response. You spoke about leadership that you say is a worry at Eskom, and you also spoke about sabotage. I'm going to come to the latter part of sabotage because this is something that Eskom is once again putting forth. Let me deal with leadership. Two ministers have in not so many ways expressed their lack of confidence on the leadership of Andre de Ruyter at Eskom. Gwede Mantashe and Enoch Godongwana. These are two ministers who lead very important portfolios. How much of this, Mr. Vavi, in your view, is about the competency of Andre de Ruyter and his leadership team versus what some observers are saying is a tug of war between Pravin Gordhan, who leads public enterprises, versus Gwede Mantashe, who leads minerals and energy, which is where Eskom, some say, ought to be situated or ought to be residing, which is within the Department of Minerals and Energy?
Both Gwede Mantashe and Enoch Godongwana should have gone a step further in our view. They should have not just ended in criticizing Andre de Ruyter of being incompetent, but they should have actually called for his head, which is something that NUMSA, SAFTU, and all of the progressive formations in our country have been calling for many, many months now, for a simple reason. We have never seen so many stages and occasions of load shed as we have seen under the leadership of Andre de Ruyter. Never in our country have we been subjected to this extent of blackouts, load shedding that are so unpredictable. And there can only be one reason, that the CEO and the executive as a whole, including that Eskom board, do not know what they are doing there. But in our view, that extends further to the minister responsible. the Minister of Public Enterprises. Anywhere else in the democratic world, a minister that manages a key institutions to the point that it becomes the sole reason why we're not growing our economy and that we are losing so many jobs in the economy, we're losing so many small enterprises that are mainly black that were supposed to be empowered to participate in the former whites-only economy. That minister would have long been shown the door, which is what makes us to be worried about the leadership of the president himself. If his Minister of Energy and Minerals and the Minister of Finance can see that this cat is black or is white amongst the black sheep, why can't he also make the similar statement that Minister Pravin Gordhan perhaps is now reached a point where he must be asked to retire.
Can I ask you the question, Mr. Vavi? Can I ask you the question? Because you see, the other element here that is not coming across just as strongly is the latter part of my question. And that is, fine, you are saying that Andre Director, in your view, as SAFTU, is incompetent and basically he should be shown the door. But the other argument here, Mr. Vavi, and this is what people are saying, it's actually the political war of words that is right now ongoing. How much of this is about the transition from coal to renewable energy, to clean energy? Because this is where Gwede Mantashe is most vociferous. And the biggest worry is the Emalahleni and Middelburg industrial complex, which produces in the main coal that is transported to Eskom's power stations. How much of this is about making sure that there is still very much an industry for coal in the country?
All of the above, we will say. Look, we insist in SAFTU that there can be no renewable. There can no be a quick march to embracing renewables in our country without a just transition. And the just transition begins at a point where the workers who are more likely to be affected are properly consulted, brought on board, and can see that their future is not going to be thrown into the dustbin. And where the communities of Middelburg and Witbank, as well as the entire Mpumalanga, Limpopo, can see that there is no rush to close down their coal in order to take us into renewables, where they will not be beneficiaries. They have not been beneficiaries even now, in our view, in a coal or in the fossil fuels dominated economy. And we don't want them not to be beneficiaries even in the renewables. Minister Mantashe is amongst those that are correctly insisting that there must be a just transition, and that when we embark on a just transition, we must see for real, not some theory. We must see for real that nobody is going to be left in the lurch as we move from the carbon-dominated economy into renewables.
All right.
Is that not fair ask? We think that that's absolutely fair to ask. And that's what SAFTU and all of the other trade unions are insisting on.
Yeah. Let's come then to the question around sabotage. The CEO coming out very strongly on Friday that there are indeed at least indications of sabotage at Eskom, and in particular, the focus is on the Litabo power station, where they say that they have seen such evidence, at least preliminary. How much of this has to do with the employees of Eskom? Or perhaps the question is, can the employees of Eskom be taken out of the equation when it comes to sabotage? And these are some of your members, by the way, under the fold of NUMSA.
Oh no, how many times have we heard this nonsense about the sabotage story? Were you not here in 2002 when the then Minister, Alec Ewen, once again blamed Sabotage when he was facing the reality of having ignored the Eskom management plea that government invest in the infrastructure of Eskom way back in 1997, and when he would have been warned that failure to invest in the aging infrastructure will lead to load shedding in 10 years. Where have they ever produced evidence about that sabotage in 2002? Where were you not here around here when the minister, the same Minister of Public Enterprises now misinformed and got the President Cyril Ramaphosa to make himself a fool on national television by making a ridiculous proposition that there was sabotage somewhere in Mpumalanga? Did they ever produce evidence to back that claim? Now that underrators cannot explain why, under his leadership, we are seeing more load shedding than any other time in the history of our country, suddenly they have discovered some sabotage in Litabo Power Station. Is that explaining the reason why this country has been plunged into a crisis that is unimaginable? Does the raters ever think about what will be the future of the people who are writing matric exams at the end of this term? Have you ever thought about how disruptive this is to the black working class communities where the police stations are so poorly resourced to be able to respond to even desperate calls from women who are facing rapists in their homes? Have anybody thought about what it means to black business who do not have power generators to be instructed and told in 30 minutes they will be moved into stage 4, when the only option they have is to send workers home and without any pay at the end of the month? Why are we being taken for granted as if we are all fools?
Yeah. Underrators
can fool some, probably the president, who is clearly one of his backers, but he will not fool everybody, including inside cabinet.
All right, Mr. Vavi, I think that you've made your point very clear. Joining the conversation, albeit at a late stage, is Kangela Baloyi, and he is the NUM Energy Sector Coordinator. Mr. Baloyi, thank you very much for your time. As a union that organizes within Eskom, let's just latch on to this particular topic that we're dealing with. The CEO, Andre Direte, on Friday, telling the nation that there is preliminary information that there is sabotage at one of Eskom's power stations, Litabo to be specific. Your reaction to these claims that are once again coming up at Eskom?
Firstly, thanks for having me. You see, as the NUM, we are not aware of any act of sabotage, and we will encourage those who have evidence of the act of sabotage to go to the law enforcement agencies and report this sabotage. Because sabotage is a serious thing, and if you have information with it, you definitely have to report it to the law enforcement agencies. We are not aware of that, and we are saying our members must not be used as a scapegoat for the crisis that we're facing as a country of load shedding.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this discussion. Zwelinzima Vavi is the General Secretary of SAFTU, and alongside Kangela Baloyi, who is with the National Union of Mine Workers.